What's going on, YouTube? The BMW 3 Series needs no introduction, since it is the world's best-selling and probably best-known luxury sports sedan. So when BMW redesigns the 3, it is definitely a big deal, especially to car enthusiasts all over the world. But before we hop into it, we want to take a moment to specially thank our new friends at BMW Cincinnati North for letting us check out this fully loaded 330i M Sport. And of course, if you're in the market for any BMW, be sure to stop by their dealership or visit them via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with all that said, let's go ahead and see if this is the best 3 Series ever. So getting started with the exterior design. As you'd expect, BMW hasn't reinvented the wheel here, but it does still look noticeably different. The biggest change to me is how much wider it looks, thanks mainly to the elongated kidney grille. Now the interesting thing about this grille is that it is almost completely sealed off for aerodynamic purposes, with your lower grille serving as the main air intake. The headlights also serve to make the 3 look wider, with a new W-shaped design. They'll always be this shape, but we do have the optional adaptive laser light system on this one, so that does change the design a bit. Now there are a few other differences between the styling groups. So the luxury model will get chrome on the grille, and the M Sport gets a different lower fascia and these LED fog lights. Moving to the side, BMW has kept the lovely rear drive proportions, but has smoothed all the surfacing out. It is actually about 3 inches larger than last year, though it does disguise that fact well. Additionally, on the M Sport, they've taken off all the chrome pieces to match with the aggressive black diffuser around the standard dual exhaust pipes. Now as far as the rest of the rear design, the M Sport does have its reflectors in a different spot, but other than that, everything else is the same between the design groups, including the fully LED taillights. So overall, the new 3 does a great job of both modernizing the look and still keeping the classic design cues that people will always expect. Now moving on to the wheels, there are a ton of different options. What we have here are the standard 19-inch M Sport wheels, which are a little bit larger than the 18-inch alloys that come on the Sport and Luxury. M Sport can also option on a fully blacked out wheel, and then all 3 trims can get the 19-inch gray contrast alloy. Heading on up to the mirrors, they are surprisingly heated, power folding, and auto dimming on all models, which is rare for the class. But you will need to add the convenience package to get active blind spot monitoring. And now that brings us to all the other safety systems, which the 3 has all the latest and greatest. Every model comes standard with automatic emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. And then you can add lane keeping assist and cross traffic alert with rear automatic braking through the driver's assistance package. Finally, the most advanced systems are part of the driving assistance professional package, which gives you adaptive cruise control with stop and go, plus the extended traffic jam assistant, which can completely take over driving on the highway when the speed is under 37 miles per hour. These are some very advanced systems, so it's nice that they've made it to BMW's mainstream sedan. And lastly, here on the outside, you have a 15.6 gallon fuel tank, which is good for 437 miles of range in this all-wheel drive model. And of course, it does use premium unleaded fuel. But anyways, BMW has made even more changes to the inside than the outside. So let's go ahead and check them out. So on the 3 Series, if you choose the convenience package, you will have the smart entry system. And then we do have a beautiful key fob with real metal trim. And then here on this M Sport, we've got the special M pattern as well. Additionally, you can option on a remote start system via this key fob or via the app. But anyways, getting inside the vehicle is of course very simple. All you have to do is reach behind the handle and there's a sensor to unlock it. And when you do, you will also see the power folding mirrors come out. Alrighty, so checking out the cabin of the all-new 3 Series. As you can tell right off the bat, it's picked up a lot of the characteristics from the latest BMW design. Of course, as typical for BMW, you do have a lot of different design choices you can make with this interior. So starting out with the base sport model, that's the only model that's going to come standard with Sensatec synthetic leather in black or beige. However, if you go for the luxury or the M Sport like this model, you're going to skip straight to the real Vernasca leather, and that will come in black, Canberra beige, mocha, oyster, or cognac. And then as far as your interior trims, all models have the choice of 4 different trims: open pore oak, open pore maple, brown ash, or aluminum. However, on the M Sport, we have the exclusive aluminum tetragon. But turning over here to the door trim, it is nicely finished. You have a soft touch material for your armrest, as well as a nice leather material with blue color contrast stitching across the top part. As far as the seating here, you have 2-person memory seating standard across all models, and all 4 of your windows are one-touch automatic. With the M Sport, you do of course have the special sill as well as the aluminum pedals. But turning over here to your seat, every 3 Series will come standard with this 14-way power driver's seat with 4-way lumbar support, and you even have power adjusting side bolsters. That's definitely handy for a 3 Series since this is your sports sedan of the lineup. Additionally, you do even have a manual thigh extension as well. And then checking out the seat itself, like I said, this is real Vernasca leather. It feels nice, and you really have a lovely stitching design, nice blue color contrast stitching, as well as your M branding there as well. Like I said, first looking around the cabin definitely makes a good first impression. You have a lot of the same design characteristics as the more expensive BMW models, and that does carry forward in the materials as well. So across your upper dash, you do have a soft touch plastic with some more of that blue color contrast stitching. And then dropping into the middle, you've got some aluminum tetragon trim, as well as some brushed aluminum which goes all around these vents. And then dropping down to the lower areas, once again you have more aluminum tetragon and brushed aluminum as well. And everything does fit together really, really tightly. Now of course, as you would expect, you do have standard push button start. When you press it, you will notice the screen fire up. Now there's 2 different setups that you can have with this model. So the standard setup is 8.8 inches, and that comes with iDrive 6.0. However, if you go with the optional premium package, you have this 10.25 inch screen, and that comes with the newest iDrive 7.0. But we'll get into that a little more later in the video. So for the gauges here, what you're looking at is the optional 12.3 inch Live Cockpit Pro setup. It's just a full digital display, and it is reconfigurable. So when you do things like change your drive modes, for instance, the design changes, and you can also put in, like navigation in the middle and whatnot. Now this is included with the bigger display, but otherwise you're going to have a 5.7 inch one instead. In addition to that, it is also worth noting we have a head-up display, and that's included in the premium package. Now coming back to the steering wheel, we do have electric power assisted steering. And here on the M Sport, we've got this beautiful 3-spoke design. Of course, it is leather wrapped, and you even have leather over here on the airbag cover. You do have real aluminum trim, and you got your buttons for your cruise control. And over here, you got your standard affair phone, audio, and voice commands. You will notice that every 3 Series does come equipped with rain sensing wipers, as well as paddle shifters. Additionally, in the premium package, we also have a heated steering wheel, though the wheel itself is manually tilt and telescoping. But anyways, moving on to storage, I'm actually quite impressed by how much BMW has included in a relatively small vehicle. Now turning over here to your center console, when we open up, you'll notice there is actually a pretty significant amount of space. This is definitely more than what you get in the Audi A4, for instance. And inside of here, you will also notice a USB Type-C port. In addition to that storage, when you press this button here, it releases up that cover so that you can find your 2 cup holders, as well as another nice storage bin, which doubles as a wireless phone charger. And within that, you also have a traditional USB, as well as a 12-volt outlet. Now, one of the reasons BMW was able to give you so much storage is that they go for an electronic shifter. So this does operate the same as in all other BMWs, so you just press the little unlock button on the side, and then you can pull back for drive. From there, you can bump over here to the left to shift manually, via that or via these paddle shifters. And then for reverse, all you have to do is go all up to the top. Now when you put into reverse, you will see a standard backup camera appear on all models. However, if you go for the parking assistance package, you will get this 360-degree setup. So as you can see, you've got both your traditional view with trajectory and parking sensors on the left side, as well as your 360 view on this side. Additionally, you do have the autonomous parking for both parallel and perpendicular spots, and you do have the neat backup assistant, which basically can retrace any type of route that you've done forward. It can retrace it in reverse. And then for park, all you have to do is just press the little P. And then back behind the shifter, you do also have an electronic parking brake, as well as a brake hold. And right above that, you do also have your 3 different drive modes. But anyways, now that brings us up here to the audio system. So your standard system is a 205 watt 10 speaker audio system. However, we have the optional 463 watt 16 speaker Harman Kardon premium audio system. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that. I do also want to mention that it does have gesture controls, so you can do things like draw a circle to turn up the volume. Overall, this is definitely a great sounding sound system. Anyways, now that brings us up here to our climate controls. You do have a standard 3-zone automatic setup here on the 3 Series. It's very simple to use. All you have to do is press up to activate it, and then you'll notice that you have the little display here to show your temperature for both the driver and the passenger. You can also press this. This will bring up some extra settings that you can change up here. Additionally, you will find 3-stage heated seats that come in the premium package or as a standalone option. However, it is worth noting that you cannot get ventilated seats at this time. But anyways, now that brings us up here to our iDrive 7.0 system, which is all new. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at that. Alrighty, so checking out the iDrive 7.0 system. This is all new, so it does have some new features. Now, chiefly among them, what I've already pointed out, is that this is now a touch display. So I can come up here, and I can simply touch things. I no longer have to live exclusively with the control knob, but I do still have that if you don't want to put fingerprints on it or whatnot. Now what you're looking at right now is your home screen. And you can just click on these things to expand them. So as we go into our standard navigation system, as you can see, it is very detailed, and pinch to zoom does work very nicely as well. You can simply change the settings over here as well, or you can go to a split screen where you can keep the navigation over here and all your other functions on this side. Hey BMW, I'm
Hello.
cold.
What temperature should I set?
78.
I'm setting the temperature on the driver's side to 78 degrees Fahrenheit.
Last thing I'll click on is the applications. And as you see, there's nothing in here right now at this moment. But I do want to say that this does come standard with Apple CarPlay. It's wireless Apple CarPlay. So that's free for 1 year. You do have to pay a subscription after that, and there is no Android Auto at this point. But anyways, that basically sums up the main features of the iDrive 7 system. However, we will make a more detailed tech help video available for those of you who want to learn more. A link to that will be provided in the video description. Now moving on up here, you do have a standard auto-dimming mirror with 3 HomeLink universal remotes. And then another nice standard feature is your power moonroof. As you can see, this is actually quite a bit larger than a traditional size moonroof. Not quite panoramic, but definitely larger than you would expect. And you do have a windscreen as well. But overall, the cabin of the all-new 3 Series is very impressive. Honestly, you've got a lot of space and a lot of technology. You crammed inside what is a relatively small vehicle. You know, this is one of BMW's most affordable vehicles, yet it has a lot of similarities to the flagship X7 that we were just in earlier today. So overall, fantastic job. But anyways, now go ahead and hand it off to Mason, who will finish up the rest of the cabin. Alrighty, so checking out the rear seat of the all-new 2019 BMW 3 Series, you're going to find a class-competitive amount of space. So it's technically rated at 35.2 inches of rear legroom and 37.6 inches of rear headroom, which is almost exactly the same as the Mercedes-Benz C-Class and Audi A4. Now turning over here to the door trim, BMW doesn't mess around, so you do have a really nice door trim with a padded armrest, as well as an area above it with stitched leather and the blue color contrast stitching. You do also have a nice metal door handle and a fully automatic window, as well as plenty of door storage. Now the seat itself is a really nice design. So you do have that same design as the front with the blue stitching in the middle, and it's also a very comfortable seat. Now here in the middle, BMW does fix you up really nicely. So all 3 Series models will come standard with these nice rear vents and their own climate controls. So you do have 3-zone automatic climate control, so you just push that button, and if you want to, you can adjust your temperature back here, as well as your fan speeds. Now in addition to that, we do also have 3-stage heated rear seats, which are an option. And down below that, we have 2 charging USB ports, as well as a 12-volt outlet. Now we do also have a center armrest. It does fold down nicely, as well as some cup holders in the end. Up top we have some LED lighting, does gently fade in, nice headliner, and a nice assist grip. Now, like I mentioned, this is on par with most in the class. So behind Drew's seating position, I have probably 6 inches of rear leg room, and my feet can't easily slide up under the seat. And as you can see, there is some ambient lighting down there. Now, with the seat scooted all the way back, it doesn't look like I'm going to really be able to fit back here, but that's really kind of expected for the class. But overall, I'm a really big fan of the 3 Series rear seat. It does have quite a few luxury features that some of the rivals do skimp on, like the 3-zone climate and the heated rear seats, as well as the USB ports. And like I said, it is on par with most in terms of space. Now, coming around to the trunk of the 3 Series, we do have the power trunk, which is a standalone option, so just push the button to open. And inside the trunk of the 3 Series, you're going to find one of its biggest feature upgrades over the last generation model, and that's because it has 17 cubic feet of space. Like I said, that is a huge improvement over the last generation, and it also puts it quite a bit above the Audi A4 and Mercedes C-Class. Now, in addition to that, you do also have 40-20-40 split seats, so all you have to do is pull this lever, and it will fold down. Now, off to the side, we do have some nuts, and they are on both sides. Now, over here on the passenger seat, it is of course that beautiful design. You even have some of that signature M colors here. And it is also 14-way power adjusting, just like the drivers. And you do have 4-way power lumbar support, as well as this manual thigh extension and adjustable side bolsters, which is a really nice touch. Now, in front of the passenger, the materials are quite upscale. So you do have a padded dashboard, as well as some more of this beautiful trim, some ambient lighting. And down below that, you do have a really good sized glove box, and it is really nicely felt lined. Up top, the sun visor is nicely sized. It does have an LED light and mirror, and it can also extend and detach. But anyway, guys, that sums up all the rear areas of the 3 Series. So now let's go ahead and check out that powertrain and see the real reason why you buy a 3 Series. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and talk a bit about the powertrains. Now this car will come with 2 different powertrains. However, as of right now, only the base powertrain in the 330i is in production. So that is your 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, making 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, which is right in line with what the Mercedes C-Class and Audi A4 also produce. Now, when the 340i does go into production a little later in the year, that's going to come with a turbocharged inline 6 with 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. As far as the transmission, you will always have an 8-speed automatic, and that can be paired with rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive like in this model. As far as 0 to 60 times, your 330i is going to come in at 5.6 seconds. And then you don't have an official number for the 340i yet, but BMW is estimating 4.2 seconds. Should be quite fast. Wow. And we'll wrap things up here with the fuel economy. So your 330i rear-wheel drive gets 26 city, 36 highway, 30 combined. And then when you add all-wheel drive, it goes to 25 city, 34 highway, 28 combined. And that does come in 1 mpg better than in the equivalent Quattro A4. But anyways, now we'll go ahead and take it for a quick test drive. So first taking off in the all-new 3 Series, definitely feels strong off the line. You know, this is the basic engine, but in a similar way to like the Audi A4. These base engines nowadays are really quite powerful. I mean,
they have a very distinct peppiness to them. They're not like some lethargic four-cylinder or anything. They have a peppiness to them. So despite some of their horsepower ratings not being too impressive, you definitely still feel pretty powerful.
So our auto-stop-start system was just engaged there, and it restarts really quickly. BMW had taken a little bit of flack back in the day for their auto-start-stop systems being rough, but they've definitely resolved that here. That's very smooth, and I doubt you really notice it in everyday driving.
No.
So cruising down the road here, the suspension, it's got a pleasant firmness. I say pleasant firmness because it doesn't let in a bunch of abrupt, painful thrashing or anything like that. But you can definitely tell that it is one of your more tight and taut suspension setups in the segment.
Yeah, definitely Mercedes-Benz is probably a lot more softly sprung than this car. And that's not a bad thing in regards to either one of them. It's just two different missions. You know, the 3 Series is renowned for its driving dynamics, so they had to keep that nice sporty suspension. And it is worth noting that we do have the M Sport model, so we have really big wheels, as well as probably a few little sport touches throughout to make it a little bit sportier. Now, like I was mentioning, the M Sport does actually have a little bit of a different suspension setup than the regular model. So it has a 25% greater rigidity than last year's BMW 3 Series, so it does have quite a bit of an upgrade in terms of that way, and it does have electronic dampening as well.
We can go ahead and try the sport mode, and we'll try the paddle shifters out.
Wow. I'm very impressed by this engine. It definitely has that peppy German feel.
Yeah, the paddles respond instantaneously. Some of the rivals actually have a dual clutch, like in the Audi A4, and this is a traditional automatic, but I have to say it does respond just as well.
It's also a really, really smooth transmission. When we were back in normal mode and it was doing all the shifting by itself, you definitely couldn't tell when it shifted gears. With the 8-speed automatic, it does shift quite frequently, so that's a pretty good thing to accomplish.
We don't have any real back road type of roads to drive on, but going around a couple of little corners, you can definitely tell, like I said, not only how tight the suspension is, but also how well calibrated the steering is. It is really quick responding It really, there's just no numbness or anything that a lot of more luxury-minded vehicles can have.
And this car does have a 50-50 weight distribution, a completely perfect 50-50 weight distribution, and it also has a special dampening suspension that reduces body roll around corners. And you can definitely tell that BMW spent a lot of time when it came to the driving dynamics of this car, because that's what the 3 Series is known for. And they definitely do not disappoint with this all-new model. Overall, the all-new 3 Series really is a great package overall. A lot in the class, they aren't too sporty or they're too luxury-minded, but the BMW 3 Series really hits like right in the middle between all of it, so you have that sporty feel if you want to have that, but you also have the comfort of driving a BMW if you just want to be comfortable. So as far as the pricing is concerned for the 2019 3 Series, it is right in line with most of the rivals. So its base price for the 330i rear-wheel drive is $40,250. And the trim level that's called is the Sport Appearance Group. And then you can also upgrade to the Luxury for $42,250, or the M Sport as we have here for $45,250. Now, if you want to add the xDrive system, as probably most of them will have in the colder climates, that's going to be an additional $2,000 on top of that. And the 340i that's coming later this year is going to have a starting price of $54,000 for the rear-wheel drive model and $56,000 for the all-wheel drive model. But like Drew said, it's not in production yet. Now, as with any BMW, we do have quite a few options on top of that. So we have this beautiful blue color for $550, as well as this black leather for $1,700. We also have the premium package, which is a $2,800 option, and heated front and rear seats, which is $350. Now we also have the executive package for $2,100, as well as remote engine start, which is a new option becoming available on the BMW lineup for $300. In addition to that, we have the $250 power tailgate fully power option, and an $875 Harman Kardon surround sound system. And then you add in the $995 destination charge, and this one total as equipped is $57,170.
Well guys, we've enjoyed watching one of the first in-depth looks at the 2019 BMW 3 Series M Sport. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.
Mm-hmm.